All right, we've learned about some rational exponents, and we've seen that a rational exponent just tells us about a radical, or a rational exponent is a radical. Okay, so the power in rational exponents is that we can use all the things that we know about our exponent rules here, and we can use these to simplify radicals. So let's give this a try. We're going to apply these different rules. And so our instructions here, we want to use the properties of exponents to simplify these and write them in exponential form. And we're going to do that by writing them first in rational exponents and then simplifying. All right, so let's give this a try. So here we have an expression, a radical expression, and we want to write this first in with rational exponents. So this is x to the 6th, and that 12th root is a 1/12. Okay, so we have x to the 1/12. Now we have this power to power rule. One of these guys up above here, power to power. Actually, it's not quite up there, but we know that power to power is multiplying, right? We multiply these things. So this is going to be x to the 6/12. All right, which we know what 6/12 is, so let's use what we know about fractions here, and that is a 1/2. X to the 1/2. And there you have it. So this becomes x to the 1/2, and we can leave it that way. The directions didn't tell us to write it in radical form, but if we wanted to, this means x, the square root of x. So, okay. All right, well, how about this guy right here? We have the cube root of 125x to the 30th. Okay, so we have the 125 x to the 30th, and we're raising that to the 1/3 power. And so that's going to be this 1/3 here is going to apply to both of these. So we've got 125 to the 1/3 power, or the cube root of 125. Okay, and then we have x to the, well, let's multiply those. 30 times a third is just 10, 30 thirds. So we're going to multiply these two. 30 times a third is 10. Okay, and this is going to become 5. How about that? The cube root of 125 is 5. And there we have it. All right. So we change it into rational exponents, and then we use what we know about exponents and fractions to simplify them. All right. So how about this guy right here? We've got the 6th root of x cubed y squared. Okay, well, that's x cubed y squared. That's what's going on the inside. And the 6th root is 1/6. Okay, and so we can go ahead and apply that power to each of these. So we have x to the 3/6. And we're multiplying there, right? Power to power, we multiply. So y, we're going to multiply 2 times 1/6 is 2/6. Right? And now we can clean that up a little bit. And we can write this as x 3/6 is just a half. And 2/6 is 1/3. There we have it. Okay. Well, what if we have different radicals here? All right, so we have a square root and a 5th root. So a square root we know is to the 1/2, and this x squared to the 5th is going to be x to the 2/5. And it doesn't seem like we can do much here, but we know when we multiply powers with the same base, notice we both have x and x here, that we can add these exponents. So multiplying powers with the same base, we add. So now it's just a matter of how do we add these fractions? And hopefully we have some experience with that. Remember, when you add fractions, gotta have a common denominator, right? Common denominator, so we're talking the same language. And 2 and 5 both go into 10. So 1/2 is 5/10, right? So let's rewrite this. 1/2 as 5/10, and then 2/5 is going to be, we want that to be tenths, so it's got to be 4. So we're double the 2, double the 5, and we get 4/10. And now we can simplify that. That is x to the 9/10. There it is. All right, again, we can leave it like that, but if we wanted to, we could write this as the 10th root of x to the 9th. Okay, if we were asked to put this back in a radical form, that's what we would need, okay? All right, how about, oh, there's an interesting one. The cube root of the square root of x to the 9th. And you're probably saying to yourself, why would we want to do that? Well, I don't know. Somebody would, somewhere. So, and they might call on you and ask you to do this for them. So, we have the inside, which is x to the 9th, and that's a square root, so that's 1/2. And then that's to the cube root power. So we've got the x 9th inside, we've got the square root here, that's going to be our 1/2 power, and that whole thing is inside a 1/3 power, because a 1/3 power is a cube root. All right, and so let's clean this up. Well, how about 1/2 times 1/3? Power to power, we multiply, right? So this is x to the 9th. Let's keep that hiding for right now. And 1/2 times 1/3 is 1/6. And now we can multiply those guys. 9 times 1/6 is x to the 9/6, right? And so I think we can simplify 9/6, right? So 3 goes into both of those, right? So let's go ahead and simplify. And that is 3 goes into 9 3 times and goes into 6 twice. And there it is. So there it is, cleaned up, a whole lot simpler. Again, if we wanted this, if we really wanted this as a radical, since it's a 1/2 power to the 3rd, so the half, or the denominator of 2 is going to be a square root. We don't need to put the index. And we've got x cubed inside. Okay? All right, so those are equivalent there. So again, change it into rational exponents, clean it up, just using power rules, and hopefully we can get to something that looks a whole lot simpler. That looks a lot easier than what we started with. Okay? All right, a couple more. So here we're already in rational or fractional exponents. So let's just jump right in and let's simplify them and see what happens here. Okay? So this applies to each. It's not really distribution, but it's kind of like that. So, but we got to, we'll have some multiplying here. So 125 to the 2/3. Let's just write that down. We'll deal with it in a second. Don't try to do too many steps too fast. So we've got x to the 6/5 here, okay? 6/5 times 2/3, and we're going to multiply. Remember, when you're multiplying, you multiply straight across. 6 times 2 is 12 on top, and then 15 on bottom. And the y, we're going to have 3/2 times 2/3. That's going to be 6/6, which we'll obviously simplify in a second. All right. And now we've got, well, the y's are just going to be plain old y's. The x, I think 3 goes into there, right? 3 goes into 12 and 15. So this guy is going to become 4/3, right? No, 4/5. Divide the top and bottom by 3. That's a little simpler. And then this guy, well, we have the cube root of 125. That's 5. Okay, and then we're going to square that. We get 25. Okay, maybe we'll say this is, the cube root would be 5. So if we do the 1/3 power, and then we got to take care of the squared. Okay, so cube root it and then square it. You got it. There it is. 25, x to the 4/5 y, all right? And we don't necessarily need that in a radical form. That's pretty good as it is, all right? One more. Okay, we've got a bunch of negatives here. And you can treat this a lot of different ways. All right, these guys you can attack different ways, and that's neat. There's lots of power rules. They all work together, so don't feel like there's one way you just got to go here. All right, so let's do this. Here's a definitely with this fraction, it'd be good to kind of clean this up. So and just maybe get a non-fraction. All right, I don't want to deal with that fraction right now. So I'm going to choose to get rid of it. And how are we going to get rid of it? Well, we have x squared and negative 1/2 on the x negative 1/2. When we have a quotient, we got to subtract those powers. All right. So 2 minus, I'm just going to write it down, negative 1/2. Figure out what that is in a second. Okay. And then for now, I'm just going to leave this y to negative 1/2 alone. All right. And let's see, 2 minus 1/2, this is like 4 halves. 4 halves minus negative 1/2, subtracting negatives like adding. So this would be 4 halves plus 1/2, that'd be 5 halves. So this is x to the 5 halves, y still to the negative 1/2, and that's all to the 2/5. Okay. Now we can apply this power to each of these, to the 9, to the x, and to the y. So 9 to the 2/5 is just 9 to the 2/5. Can't do much about that. And here we have a power to power, so we got to multiply. So we multiply these powers, 5 times 2, 2 times 5. That's going to be x to the 10/10, which we'll clean up in a second. And then we've got negative 1/2 times 2/5, and so that's y to the negative 2/10. Okay. All right, now it's time to clean up a little bit here. And so we got 9 to the 2/5. Can't do much about that. X 10/10 is just 1, so let's just leave it as x, or x to the first. And then negative 2/5, well, that's 1 is going to be negative, so this whole thing is going to go down below. And 2/10, let's write that as 1/5. So it's going to go down below and become positive 1/5 power. And there you go. Can't do too much about it. We'll leave it like that. Okay? So this is how we can simplify things using the power of rational exponents. And these rational exponents, remember, represent radicals. Okay? So now radicals and powers can work together nicely using fractional exponents. All right, there you have it. Keep working hard. Good luck.